how do you take off that and kind of convert that into a quote? And it's taken a while to load, I think, because of the video. So let's see here. So here you've got the layout of the home, and you've got, and I don't know, does it show my actual cursor on your screen as well? So you can see kind of where I'm working with?
Yes, it does. Yeah, I can see your cursor.
Okay. Okay, so this is the layout of the buildings. What we're really looking for is a schedule. So something right here, equipment data system 1, or it'll say equipment schedule, something that's telling us about that equipment. So I'm going to zoom in so we can read that. And it's going to take another second for it to load. So this is what we call the basis of design, meaning the engineer has selected equipment that they feel will satisfy the heat load that they've calculated for this building. So he said, you know, he's going to provide us, they are going to provide us with a lot of information about what they need this equipment to do, but they're also going to give us an example and says something like this. So in this example, you've got your cooling system. They're going for an outdoor model of 25 HVC, and then the indoor model is the FB4 CNP. So these are carriers. He selected a carrier split system, like a 2.5 ton. And you see it's listed under cooling, also listed under heating, meaning they're using the same equipment for both because they're using a heat pump. You may see in some examples there's a cooling, and then down here under heating, they'll have a gas furnace. So that tells you that, you know, you're using gas heating, and typically you're going to pair that with a straight cool. So in this example, you could go out to the internet like you do and Google the equipment and kind of get an idea of what it is, and then select an equivalent cross-reference that meets the demands that are listed here. So here he's saying, hey, I want at least 15 SEER. They're saying, you know, I want 8.5 HSPF on the heating. So, you know, this is a pretty simple example of something that we could easily convert into Goodman equipment and meet that. So where we want to make sure we meet the demand is in this example, he's kind of got this narrative down here at the bottom, okay? So we're going to talk about some of this term. So using ACA Manual S. Manual S is the accepted standard for equipment selection, okay? So these are terms you're going to hear more and more in the industry. There's 3 manuals. There's Manual J. The Manual J is what the engineer or contractor uses to calculate the heat load. In other words, how much cooling and how much heating does it take for this structure to be satisfied? So they're going to calculate how many BTUs. So are you familiar with our RightSoft offering?
I'm familiar with it. Navigating it, I'm not an expert.
And you shouldn't be. It's not something you'll ever navigate. The fact that we offer it is really all there's to it. So with RightSoft is really just a way of creating a Manual J. A contractor can take RightSoft, walk into a home or a commercial opportunity, and calculate based on the number of windows, the thickness of the walls, the total square footage, the direction of the sun, the level of insulation that's remaining in the attic and in the walls, put all that together to the extent of detail that they need to, and they will come up with a heat load saying, hey, based on this home is going to take 42,000 BTUs of cooling in order to stay cool at the peak condition.
Question in regards to the Manual J. So I've had with a particular customer where they do have access to the Manual Js and they do use RightSoft for other brands. It's not expected for us as TSMs to go out and collect this data. This is something the contractor would normally navigate through, right?
You're 100% correct. It's no more expected for us to do it than expected for us to install the system. This is a contractor responsibility to do that. So our responsibility is simply to make them aware of the fact that we have the tools available, that we have RightSoft or Perfect Pitch, which is just a RightSoft with a sales-facing tool.
Okay, thank you.
So the manual J is how we calculate how much heat load this structure is going to require. The manual S is the design of the equipment that will satisfy that heat load. Okay, so basically what this data is saying is they've calculated using the manual S, and now we've got this information down here, and I'm going to zoom in a little bit more, and hopefully it doesn't take too long to load as we get really detailed. Okay, the system is equipment. Can you read that at the bottom? I don't know how big I need to zoom it up for your screen.
No, it's
the
perfect.
System is equipment.
It's big enough.
Okay. So here you've got the design parameters, okay, what we call design conditions that the engineer used to create their manual S. Excuse me. So SODB, that's your outdoor dry bulb, your ambient temperature. They calculated it at 105 degrees, and we're going to show where all that data translates into equipment performance. So dry bulb is 105, wet bulb is 66. Wet bulb during winter outdoor is 32. So SOWB, summer outdoor wet bulb 66, winter outdoor wet bulb 32, summer indoor dry bulb 75. I don't know what this is, but you don't need it for the calculation we're going to do. And so that's kind of where you've got this. And so sensible gain, 38,603 BTUs. So what the engineer is telling us is that based on these conditions, when it's 105 degrees outside and we have a 66 degree wet bulb in the summer and a 75 degree dry bulb in the summer, this house is going to produce or going to require 38,603 BTUs of sensible cooling to maintain an average temperature of 75 degrees.
Okay.
So now we're going to look at what that means. So let's go ahead and if I do this, so let's go into partner link. And I'm going to use for an example a package unit because I think that's a real easy way to kind of see what we're getting to. In fact, let's go to Goodman MFG. So what we're going to look at is expanded cooling data. Okay, so let's go to package units because it's all in one spot. Let's go with the horizontal. So let's pretend for the sake of this exercise that instead of a 2.5 ton split system, this is a 2.5 ton package unit. And the only reason I'm doing that for this example is because package unit, the information is more readily available with a package unit. So what we're going to do is pull up, and I'm going to show you what all that we just talked about means. So here's an example of our GPH 1424 H41. So this is our 2-ton package heat pump. And so this is the expanded cooling data. How familiar are you with how to read this chart?
I'm familiar with, looking at the wet bulb and temperature and then going down the column to get the temperature rate of the bulb, sorry.
Okay.
I've done this at least 5 times, that's about it.
Okay. Okay. So what we're going to do, all this information, you could just translate this to say, this is where I want you to look on this chart. So starting with the summer outdoor dry bulb, that's our ambient temperature. So that's across here at the top. So the engineer says he wants to use 105 degrees. So we're going to use this column here. Okay. It's hard. Just the 105 column. You've got 65, 75, 85, 95, 105. They want a summer wet bulb of 66. So we're going to go you know, we kind of, close is kind of good enough in this. What we're going to provide the engineer is the chart displaying what our performance does, and we don't do it every single degree. So we do it at 63 degrees wet bulb and the 67 degrees. So here we've got the entering indoor wet bulb. So that's the same as our summer indoor or out, or actually we want our summer indoor wet bulb. So let's see. Let's see, summer indoor dry bulb. Winter dry bulb. Does he provide that? So it gives us the dry bulb. No, we're going to go off of 66. So I'm going to just round up to 67. And then the last number is the dry bulb of 75 degrees. So that's these charts over here. So if we want 75 degrees, that's this. So based on what the engineer's design conditions are, we are going to go from 105.67. We're going to come down until we are in the 75 degree block. And then you have your next breakdown is your airflow. That's your CFM. Let's see, does he provide that? The engineer does not provide that. So we would just use a nominal CFM. Typically, they're going to tell us what CFM. Well, let me see. Required airflow. Oh, interesting. Okay. So actually, he does tell us, they do tell us required cooling airflow, 1926 CFM. So, yeah, that's interesting. They want 2,000, almost 2,000 CFM. So we're going to, let's see. So they want 42,000 BTUs. This is a 4-ton FB4C. So they've got, this is where it gets interesting. 542. Okay, so they've got a 25 HBC 542. That's a 3.5-ton condensing unit with a 4-ton air handler. Okay, so we're going to go down here to our 3.5-ton package unit for comparison.
And so
okay,
while
so
you're looking for that, I just want to add to the video for anybody who's watching this and trying to figure out the details that Brian just knows. You can look up the nomenclature on a carrier website or just Googling it to at least narrow down what tonnage. Is it a heat pump? Is it gas? And so I just want to add that to the video to help whoever's watching it. Okay.
Sure. Another thing you can do if you're just looking for kind of a rough tonnage is the capacity, 42,000. You can always divide that number by 12,000. 12,000 BTUs is considered 1 ton. So that's where we get the 3.5 ton. That's why we call this a 3.5 ton system, because it's 12,000 BTUs is how many BTUs it takes to melt 1 ton of ice in 24 hours, 1 ton of ice in 1 day. So that's just kind of a nominal universal shorthand that the industry uses to simplify, you know, as we're talking, oh, it's a 2 ton, it's a 3 ton, just makes it a little easier to communicate the requirements. So we're going to go down to a 42,000 BTU system, a 3.5 ton system. We're going to look at our design conditions. So 105 outdoors, what we said. We're going to round up to 67. We're going to come down to 75 dry bulb. The engineer called for 1926 CFM. The 3.5 ton system doesn't provide that much. Its high-end airflow is 1461. So now we kind of talk about, we can kind of put a little asterisk and talk about qualifying our bid. No two manufacturers make things exactly the same. There is no perfect cross from our system to carriers or anyone else's. So when you find these discrepancies, it's okay. It doesn't mean we can't quote it. All it means is that we have to communicate that. So what we would do in our quote in this example is we would say, exception, equipment provides 1461 CFM, not 1926, as specified. So we'll just let them know, hey, you want 2,000, almost 2,000 CFM. our equipment doesn't do it. What really matters, though, is can our equipment satisfy the cooling demand? So going back to this 38,603 BTUs, so at 105, 67, and then 75, and the highest airflow we have, we are going to provide 39.3. So that's 39,300. So we're right there. They want 38,603, and we are providing 39,300. So does our equipment satisfy the cooling demand? It does. In this example, we could use our 3.5 ton to provide the same amount of cooling.
Okay.
So that's where we get into, that's our total cooling. Okay. So the next factor we have to account for is whenever you're cooling a space, a certain amount of the BTUs that you're providing don't actually affect the temperature. They kind of get